Let's jump right in. Today, we're tackling something literally every single student knows intimately well: stress. But we're not just going to talk about surviving it. We are going to explore how to take that crippling, overwhelming stress and actually engineer it into a state of flow. We're going to see how the very chaos that threatens to burn you out can actually be transformed into a massive performance-enhancing tool. I want you to sit with this question for just a second. What if the stress you are so desperately trying to escape is actually your greatest competitive advantage? I mean, we've always been taught to view a racing heart or a tight chest as a sign that we're failing, right? Or that we need to just run away. But today, we're reframing this whole journey. That physical response we usually fear, it might just be the exact edge we need to absolutely dominate our academics and, honestly, our lives.
Section 1. The Anatomy of Chaos. Understanding the breaking point.
Before we can manage all this chaos, we kind of have to understand what we're at war with. Being a student isn't just about reading textbooks. It is an overwhelming multi-front war. Look at these compounding pressures pulling you in a million different directions every single day. First, you've got the academic strain, just the sheer need to memorize massive amounts of information and hit relentless deadlines. Then, layer on the social stress, peer pressure, navigating relationships, maybe adjusting to living on your own for the very first time. And finally, daily life just hits you. Financial burdens, balancing a part-time job, or even just dealing with a brutal commute. It's literally a perfect storm.
And here is the scientific reality of what that storm actually does to us. It's called the Yerkes-Dodgson law. Basically, if you have low stress, you have low output. You're probably just bored or unmotivated. But look at the middle. A mild amount of physiological or mental stress actually boosts your performance to its absolute peak. It sharpens you. However, if that stress keeps ramping up and becomes chronic, it totally destroys your immediate focus and can lead to some pretty severe mental and physical health issues. So the goal here isn't zero stress, no way. The goal is staying right in that sweet spot of mild stress.
Section 2. Foundations of Control. Taking back the schedule. Okay, so to stay in that sweet spot, we've got to regain some ground. And that means treating organization not as some super boring chore, but as your primary defense mechanism against the chaos. Organization literally neutralizes the dread. Think about it. If you're taking 4 classes, all with different assignments and test dates, holding all of that in your head is completely overwhelming. But by simply taking the time to log your class times, your exam dates, and your due dates onto a calendar, you instantly remove the psychological weight of the unknown. You've essentially contained the enemy on paper.
Now, once you have those big dates down, you have to manage the day-to-day. Rather than waking up to a totally blank slate and just sort of deciding what to do based on your mood, use time blocking. Take this college night owl schedule, for example. You hit your lecture at 9 a.m. By the afternoon, your brain is probably cooked, so you block out 3 p.m. for working out, doing laundry, maybe grabbing groceries. Then at 6 p.m., when your energy naturally peaks again, you block out time for intense, focused study. Matching difficult tasks to your peak energy hours, that is the ultimate way to crush procrastination.
But hey, your routine shouldn't be set in stone. They have to evolve with you. While that night owl schedule might work perfectly for undergrad, a shift to something like medical school might require a massive pivot. You can see how the schedule completely flips to an early bird routine here, optimizing focus work for the mornings and entirely cutting out evening study as you age and your workload changes. So don't be afraid to experiment for a few days to figure out exactly where your new peak focus lies.
Section 3. The Power of Observation. Facing the Abyss.
I want to slow things down for a second here. Because, let's be real, all the scheduling and time blocking in the world won't save you when you hit a moment of acute, overwhelming distress. We need a targeted strategy for when things feel entirely out of our control. Imagine being just 18 years old, a freshman in college, and getting diagnosed with inflammatory bowel disease. Specifically, battling your first acute flare-up of Crohn's disease, which is a condition severely exacerbated by unmanaged stress, by the way. The physical pain is excruciating, and the fear of when that next bout of pain will strike completely paralyzing. At first, distraction seems like the obvious answer, right? Like playing Tetris just to run away from the reality of the pain. But that failed completely. Then came this incredibly subtle yet life-changing mental shift. Rather than rejecting the pain, I just watched it. Instead of fearing the pain, they shifted to curiously observing it, just noticing where it occurred and exactly what it felt like. We can actually break this mindful observation down into 3 super actionable steps for any time you feel completely overwhelmed. Step 1. Slow, deep breathing. This physically activates your parasympathetic nervous system. That is your rest and digest function, which forcefully shuts down your fight or flight response. Step 2. Curiously observe the bodily response. Is your chest tight? Is your stomach in knots? Just watch it. Don't judge it. And step 3. Detach from the emotional hold. By accepting the sensation with curiosity rather than fear, the emotional grip instantly vanishes. The stress of the situation plummets, and suddenly, the chaos becomes manageable. Section 4. Reframing the challenge. The flow state. Okay, so we've conquered acute distress, but what about mastering that moderate stress? Visualize sitting in a dead silent exam room. The stakes are super high, nobody's making eye contact, and the only sound is the heavy shuffle of papers. Your heart starts racing. Now, believe it or not, that physical arousal is totally neutral. It is entirely up to your own internal self-talk to label it. You can label it as fear, making it threatening and draining, or you can label it as excitement, turning it into this adversarial, hyper-focused state. Seriously, pay attention to your internal dialogue the next time you're sitting down for an exam. Try adopting a really aggressive, almost sports-like mentality. Tell yourself, it's me versus the test. Bring it. Get pumped up about the elevated stakes. This simple reframe changes absolutely everything about how your brain processes the challenge in front of you. So when you inevitably hit a brutal question, you don't panic. You treat that difficult question not as a threat to your entire future, but as an opponent trying to tackle you on the field. You acknowledge it like, hey, good try trying to stop me, but you resolve to circle back and beat it before the clock runs out. This adversarial reframing totally transforms the drudgery of studying into actual showtime. It makes taking tests a fun, competitive game that you are more than capable of dominating. Section 5. One step at a time. Moving forward. Let's look at one final macro strategy for conquering those massive, super intimidating goals, the ones that trigger a stress response just by thinking about them. Take attempting your very first 100-mile century bike ride. If you start out and just stare at that massive distance to the finish line, you're going to feel immediately defeated and paralyzed. The trick to surviving and actually succeeding is shrinking your focus. You don't ride 100 miles. You just focus on riding one more mile, and then another mile after that. It takes the impossible and makes it manageable. So I want to directly challenge you right now. Look at your own life. Whether it's an overwhelming school project, writing a massive thesis, or finally starting that side hustle you've been talking about, do not look at the final goal and let the gap between where you are and where you want to be defeat you. Ask yourself, what is one single manageable step you can take today that will bring you closer to that goal? And what about the day after that? I want to leave you with this incredibly powerful, lingering thought. We often overestimate what we can accomplish in a day, but underestimate what we can accomplish in a year. By combining ruthless organization, mindful observation of our physical stress, and reframing our challenges as exciting competitions, we finally stop letting stress control us. We break our massive goals down into daily miles. Take that one step today, manage the chaos, and just watch how far you go in a year. So ask yourself, if the stress you've been running from is actually just mislabeled energy, what could you conquer if you finally decided to use it?